Modern endurance athletes spend thousands on oxygen therapy. They hire coaches to optimize breathing. They do altitude training to adapt to low oxygen, all to squeeze out a few more minutes of peak performance. Persian Cavalry did something different. They weren't adding a breathing hack. They were building entire nervous systems that refused to panic under conditions that would make modern athletes collapse in minutes. 4-hour cavalry engagements, full armor, repeated bursts of acceleration and impact, heart rate spiking, adrenaline flooding, and their breathing stayed controlled while everyone else spiraled. So what made that possible? It wasn't genetics, it wasn't supplements. It was a system so brutal and unavoidable that it shaped their physiology from childhood. Fail at it, and you didn't survive to have kids. By the end of this video, you'll understand why modern humans are biologically soft and how Persian cavalry became something we can barely comprehend. Modern endurance culture has a fixation: supplemental oxygen, altitude training domes that cost $10,000, hyperbaric chambers, oxygen therapy clinics opening everywhere. The appeal is obvious. Oxygen is literally what fuels your muscles. So if you can optimize oxygen extraction and increase oxygen saturation, you can theoretically push harder for longer. And yeah, it works. Sort of. Studies show that athletes using supplemental oxygen do show measurable performance gains, maybe 5 to 10%. So they keep paying. But here is what most creators skip. The reason we are dependent on external oxygen optimization is not because our bodies are broken. It is because modern life actively suppresses our ability to function efficiently on less oxygen. Now compare that to Persian cavalry. They were not using supplemental oxygen. They were not doing altitude training. They were something completely different. Persian warriors conducted cavalry charges that lasted hours, not minutes, hours. There are documented instances of Sassanid cavalry engaging in continuous combat for 3 to 4 hours without collapse. European knights were bonking after 30 minutes to an hour. They were gasping, panicking. Their bodies were failing. So how were Persian cavalry sustaining extreme physical effort 3 to 4 times longer without any modern optimization? It was not genetics. It was not diet. It was not some secret herb or supplement. They did not have access to oxygen therapy. It was biology. Specifically, a breathing pattern trained their bodies to handle something modern athletes actively fear: carbon dioxide. But here is where it gets interesting. For most of human history, this was not a hack. It was automatic. For thousands of years, Persian warriors lived in a system that had no room for softness. That system shaped their bodies into something modern humans have difficulty comprehending. It started in childhood. Young warriors were not just training mounted archery. They were learning to execute precision under conditions that spike adrenaline and heart rate. Full gallop, unstable surface, a weapon that requires full upper body tension, a moving target, all while staying calm enough to be accurate. Accuracy under those conditions is not a skill. It is an adaptation. The nervous system had to stop panicking when the heart was pounding. Breathing had to stay controlled when adrenaline flooded the body. If it did not, you died. The system did not tolerate mediocrity. This selection pressure was absolute. You either learned to regulate your nervous system under extreme stress, or you did not survive long enough to pass it on. There was no middle ground. No one could say, I am having an off day. There was no modification for sensitivity. The environment was the teacher, and it was brutal. What is elegant about this, and this is the part modern humans miss, is that it was not a protocol. It was not a technique learned on the side. It was built into an entire childhood. Mounted archery was not optional. CO2 tolerance was not something trained separately. They were one system. Then in combat, that system had to survive something even harder. 4-hour cavalry engagements, not steady effort, repeated explosive bursts, acceleration, impact, deceleration, re-engagement, all in full armor, all in heat, all with adrenaline continuously spiking. Your heart rate is maxed out. Your muscles are burning from repeated bursts. Your lungs are fighting to deliver oxygen. Carbon dioxide is rising. Adrenaline is still dumping. Most bodies shut down. The brain says stop. The nervous system panics. Breathing becomes shallow and fast. Efficiency collapses. Performance falls apart. Persian cavalry did not just last longer. They stayed controlled while everyone else spiraled. They stayed efficient. They stayed lethal for hours while other warriors were falling apart. This was not because they were genetically superior. It was because they had been filtered by a system that made panic elimination unavoidable. Here's what the research actually shows about that difference. This is where the science explains what they were doing. Your body has sensors called chemoreceptors. They detect carbon dioxide levels in your blood. When carbon dioxide rises above a certain threshold, they trigger a panic response. That sensation of needing to breathe. That is not actually about oxygen. It is about carbon dioxide. When you train your body to handle elevated carbon dioxide through controlled breath hold practice, you are essentially desensitizing your chemoreceptors. They stop triggering that panic response as quickly. Your body learns to tolerate higher carbon dioxide without panicking. This is exactly what Persian Cavalry was triggering during their breathing practice. Here's the mechanism. In the first 2 to 4 weeks of carbon dioxide tolerance training, your body detects the elevated carbon dioxide and begins chemoreceptor adaptation. Your nervous system starts recognizing that high carbon dioxide does not mean immediate danger. By 4 to 8 weeks, your parasympathetic nervous system, the branch that calms you down, becomes more active. You stop panicking during carbon dioxide elevation. This is critical for combat. A warrior who panics under physiological stress loses. A warrior who remains calm wins. By 8 to 12 weeks, your lungs become more efficient at oxygen extraction. The alveolar interface, where oxygen actually enters your blood, adapts to extract more oxygen from each breath. You are breathing the same amount of air, but getting more oxygen out of it. By 12 weeks and beyond, your body maintains performance at lower oxygen saturation levels. Your mitochondria become more efficient. Your capillary density increases. Your cardiovascular system pumps blood more effectively with less effort. The cellular adaptations are straightforward. Increased mitochondrial efficiency, improved parasympathetic tone, enhanced stroke volume. Your heart pumps more blood per beat. Increased capillary density. Your body literally rewires itself to function better on less oxygen. This is why Persian cavalry could sustain 4-hour cavalry charges, not because they were superior humans, but because they trained an adaptation that modern athletes do not develop, because we rely on supplements and technology instead. Modern research backs this completely. Studies show that carbon dioxide tolerance training produces measurable improvements in endurance capacity. Athletes trained in breath hold protocols show better cardiovascular efficiency, lower heart rate during intense effort, and superior performance during extended exertion. But here's what is critical. This is free. This is ancient. This costs 8 cents in practice time. Modern oxygen therapy costs thousands. And here's why understanding this matters for what you do next. Here's what we actually lost. For thousands of years, human warriors maintained endurance capacity through environmental conditions that made it inevitable. You did not need supplements. You did not need external oxygen. You did not need technology. Your body had been trained from childhood to adapt, to tolerate carbon dioxide, to remain calm under stress, to extract oxygen efficiently. The biology took care of itself because the training was built into the system. What is elegant about that system is that it required no external inputs, no drugs, no equipment, no monthly subscription. Your body just adapted to the demands placed on it. Then modern life removed the stimulus entirely. We stopped doing breath hold training. We stopped doing mounted archery. We stopped training our bodies to function under stress. We started using technology to optimize oxygen instead. The result is that modern athletes are biologically dependent on external optimization tools because we never trained the internal capacity. Now you have options. You can try to develop CO2 tolerance the way Persian cavalry did. Learn the breathing pattern, practice for weeks, develop the adaptation. It works. Research backs it, and it costs nothing. Or you can keep buying oxygen therapy, altitude training domes, supplements, coaching programs that cost thousands. Here's the honest take. If you are serious about extending your endurance capacity, CO2 tolerance training is one of the most straightforward ways to do it. Not because it is new, but because it has been validated by thousands of years of warriors who had no choice but to make it work. Is it necessary? No. You could keep using supplements. You could keep spending money on oxygen therapy. Some people see real gains from that alone. But if you are serious about maximizing your endurance capacity right now, understanding how to train CO2 tolerance is the first step. Because once you do, you stop being dependent on external tools. You become what Persian cavalry were. Self-sufficient, adapted, enduring. The reason we need to buy oxygen therapy and supplements to extend our endurance is not because our bodies are broken. It is because we stopped training the adaptations our bodies evolved to develop. And once you understand that, you can make smarter decisions about how to actually build endurance. Supplements are not the problem. Modern life is. And until you rebuild the stimulus for adaptation or acknowledge that you cannot, External tools become the logical solution. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever practiced breath hold training or respiratory control? What was your experience? We are reading every single response. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for the next breakdown on ancestral protocols modern science is finally validating.